500 subs, I'm going to play Space Crusade and review it. So if you're interested in that, like and subscribe, and that'd be fantastic. Wait. Who the hell are you? I'm Vamps.
And what is it that you're exactly doing?
I do wargaming stuff for YouTube, you know?
Right. I came up in an elevator. This is meant to be the 50th floor. How the hell am I here?
I don't know. I don't know.
What have you got there?
Popsicle sticks?
No. Not popsicle. Prapsicle.
Huh?
Prapsicle.
I can tell you wanna paint with the miniature man. Okay, so let's talk Papsicles Miniatures. They do a great range of miniatures, mostly sci-fi and cyberpunk, but there's a little dash of fantasy. So things like Alien, Predator, Space Humans, mechs. But my main aim today is to talk about the cyberpunk portion of the range, because I just did Exploit Zero. So, but there's quite a bit of cyberpunk, which I should have gotten them out, but I'm an idiot. So, which there's quite a bit of, ranging from well-known, cyberpunk, Shadowrun, and even like things like RoboCop and Terminator. So, and even some more obscure stuff like Bio-Boosted MacGyver, Kamen Rider, and they even have some what-if cyberpunk miniatures, as in like, what if The Witcher was cyberpunk? In fact, this here is actually Yen from The Witcher in cyberpunk form, and yes, Geralt is also there, so, that's pretty cool. Papsicle's range looks like for hours, but I'd like to keep the video under half an hour if possible, so let's get to the meat and potatoes of the things. Alright, let's get this done. These sculpts are amazing. They look great, and when they generally do a set like RoboCop, for example, you get a couple different poses to choose from. So, I've got this one, then there's one of him like holding it up, and there's some other RoboCop related miniatures, which is pretty cool. Indie creators just seem to know how to strike a balance between just enough stuff to make a miniature look interesting without overloading it. So, you've got things like belts and pouches and bottles and grenades when needed, but they don't have too many of these things. It's not like they're absolutely covered in 20 different things. So that's great. Also, Pap just seems to be able to work with these dynamic poses, which is really great. So I've never once looked at one of his miniatures and gone, yeah, no, these just ain't for me, They always look really cool and stylish, and they cut a very cool image on the battlefield that's hard to look away from. Now, it's not all sunshines and rainbows, sadly. The customization on the miniatures is pretty much non-existent. What you get is what you see. So if you're hoping to turn RoboCop into a Space Marine, that's not going to happen. Unless, of course, you are getting out the digital or physical modeling tools. That being said, Pap is good enough to recognize that some miniatures may have parts that are a bit hard to print if you print them in a single model. So he separated these parts out, which is great for printing them. Speaking of which... Alright, ease of print. So once again, the design of these miniatures is so good. The printing them is great. I've had these miniatures show up a fair bit and guess what's printing, and pretty much all of them printed on the first attempt. I did have an issue with Nena's backpack, but I was in a rush, so it didn't print quite as nice as it could have. But it did print first go, so that was fine. And then there was a Yakuza Cyberpunk that I was trying to print. It was meant to be Hawk's miniature, and I just couldn't get the legs to print properly. I think it may have been an error in the model. I'm gonna let Pap know that possibly could be the case, so they can have a look at it. That being said, though, these things happen. Everyone has miniatures that sometimes get an error in them, and they don't find out until people start printing these things. The rest are super easy, printed first shot, and the supports are also very easy to remove. The dynamic poses tend to lead to easy support removal, such as RoboCop here. He was very easy to remove the supports from, and there was no damage done to him, so that's great. Overall, joy to print, and I had very little issue with them. Hey everyone, I'm just standing in front of my green screen. If you want to put something fun behind me, that's all good.
Anyway, I just wanted to jump in and say, if you haven't seen, I have a guessing game going for what's going to be coming up in the historical video. So if you want to take a shot in the dark, you most certainly can, but there will be a few hints throughout the next few videos. If you manage to guess what it is, you'll get a prize, which you'll get a choice between 3 of them, which will be either a unit that I printed for the game, and you can either take it as unpainted or I can send you a fresh one, or you can take V-Rising on Steam or WWE 25, whatever the hell it's called. That's also available. So if you win, you get to pick one of those. First person who guesses it wins. So, you know, there is a bit of a time limit. And that's it. Alright, thanks guys. Let's continue with the video.
Oh, salad. Chicken salad. Anyway, guys, as I was saying, I feel like I'm talking in cycles here because, once again, the sculpts and poses lead to an easy time of painting. You know, there's really no sort of like little tiny alcoves that you can't get into. Yeah, I guess you could argue that Dragon's face here is a bit hard to see, but, you know, I actually went for the stylistic choice and really sort of grayed his face out, so I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, it's nice and easy getting all the gaps. The models themselves have like these large sort of areas that lead into, you know, you can paint them nice and bold colors and they stand out pretty well regardless of how you paint them. And because of the nice amount of extra items on the miniatures, you don't have to have 20 different paints going. I mean, you can, of course. You can paint them like a rainbow if you particularly wished, but for me, I tend to like to go sort of like a contrasting colors and then some sort of like darker sort of, you know, browns and stuff like that. With Cyberpunk miniatures, I'll generally use a bit more fluoro. Let's not get into that. That's not about the miniatures. And so you don't need to have 20 different paints. You know, you can do boots, belts, pouches, bottles, and other accessories pretty easily. You don't have to have, you know, 7 different browns going for everything. So that is great. And of course, these are printed on PLA. And as I've said before, PLA, you prime it, you paint them, they're good to go. Not much of a worry. And yeah, these guys just came out really well. And as you can see, yeah, there's just not really much in the way of crazy overhangs or trying to fit a paintbrush in a gap that's never going to get into. So that's awesome. Okay, so that's it. We're coming in for the wrap up. Papsicles miniatures are a great range, lots to pick from. They look great, they strike an imposing figure on the table. And even if you aren't the best painter, they end up looking really cool, and you know, you get a really nice look on the table. Like, people, these are the kind of miniatures that people will pick up and look at because they're striking. Now, if you are a big customization person though, yeah, this range might not be for you. You know, you're gonna have to do extra work on your end, and that's fine. You know, these things happen. If you play Cyberpunk games like Shadowrun or Exploit Zero or Cyberpunk 2077, you'll be fine with just using these, particularly if you just want to get the table rocking. Well, this is it, you know, boom, done, painted, and you're good to go. That's on Papsicle's Cyberpunk range. Now, I probably will do more of Papsicle's range in the future. I'll probably have a look at the sci-fi and possibly the fantasy. As I said, I could have spent a lot of time talking about like just each individual sort of range these got going, but honestly, I'd be here for hours. I could be here for for another hour. So I just thought that this is a nice little primer to get you in the mood. Go check out Papsicles, they do great stuff. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, guys. I really appreciate it, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.